key components of the base camp, and beyond. Here's some things I've been learning, and I hope this will be interesting to you. So let's just relax and think about it. So what is this habitation going to be like? Well, you know what? It's going to have some very interesting components. For instance, inflatables on the moon. So because of the extremely high cost, it's been calculated at about $1 million per kilogram or pound, depending on how you're going to look at the math. They want to transport whatever they're going to use for habitable structures as light and small as possible, hence inflatables. Now, you're not going to make a big bubble on the moon and just say, hey, that's it. No way, because you need shielding, and you need shielding for two things. One, radiation. That's right, those bubbles aren't going to just stop radiation. Second, you need shielding from micrometeors. Hence, this is where the 3D printing comes into place. Are they going to use regolith or the local materials? Well, obviously that is the goal. To be able to take that material and be able to build a shell on these structures. Now, another way of going about this is things like lava tubes or other natural forming structures, geological structures that can either be mined into or utilized as much as possible to be part of that shielding, to be part of that structure. Now, habitation is going to require a few other things. Now, one point from the Artemis project perspective is they want 4 astronauts to be able to live there for long or short term. Now, this is a whole different way of thinking about long-term habitation. Like for instance, if I say I'm living someplace long-term, you might say, well, maybe I get a 1-year lease or rent. When you're talking about the moon, you're talking about 2 to 3 months for long-term. Now, obviously, they want that to be higher, 6 months, a year, possibly longer. So what are they going to have to require? Well, they're going to have to require a lot of things. One, recycling systems. And these recycling systems have to be far more efficient than what we're used to utilizing here, which could have a trickle-down effect that would be beneficial for us. For instance, water recycling. Every drop of water is going to be valuable. So valuable, in fact, that one of the key things that they're going to be doing when they get to the moon is mining. So they're going to need garages, they're going to need airlocks, they're going to need vehicles like LTVs. Now, those are basically rovers where you put on your spacesuit, they're convertible in space, and off you go, collect, do your repairs, what have you. So those sort of machines, dune buggies in space, are coming, which is somewhat interesting. And by the way, they're going to have to handle terrain that are way more damaging than what we have here on Earth. Because that regolith, it's razor sharp. It isn't being broken down by the natural environmental structures and systems that we appreciate. So that means from tires to parts, everything has to be able to handle that very damaging environment. Other things just to take in consideration. They're going to have some sort of food production. So greenhouses, aquaculture. In fact, just to show that this is not something where they're starting from zero. They haven't even thought about this. Did you know that they've actually had trees in space? That's right. They have brought tree seeds, let's be more specific, seeds into space twice. That's right, twice. Why? Because they're trying to figure out, how would you grow trees on the moon? How are you going to grow food? Is that all you can grow? Are you going to do agroforestry, which is growing mushrooms or algae for food sources? These sort of processes are being developed. And it's actually very exciting. Oh, how about some other things I've been learning I want to share with you? Did you know that in the Japanese Space Agency, they've been working on a lunar RV? That's right. They're planning RV trips with 1 or 2 astronauts or maybe more. All I know is that this has gone beyond just somebody saying it. They're actually in the process of building a prototype and then delivering it to the moon, that this is going to be an RV. That means no spacesuit, all pressurized system that the astronauts will be able to live and travel in. Now that gives range. That means instead of a lot of what you're going to hear is it in ITSU, initsu. And basically that system means try to build everything as close as you can to your habitation. Now, mind you, the further they can range to collect other materials or explore, expand science, well, that gives you that range and opportunities. And that is what they're up to right now. They're trying to develop for this habitat, all these habitats, to be long-term. So I found it quite fascinating. For instance, the life support systems, they're going to have to use everything as well as possible. So when you hear about the toilet system on the Orion and so forth, I want you to take it another step. That waste, that human waste, it's not waste. You got to just throw that thought out of your mind. Same with urine. Yes, both of them. That's not waste anymore. That has to be mined. Why? It has extreme high value. And in fact, I got it. Okay. Sorry.
Infrastructure.
Okay.
Like, especially landing pads.
Okay. Infrastructure. They've got to build landing pads. They've got to build shops. They've got to build solar collection. They're even talking about using nuclear power. So there is a lot of infrastructure that has to be built into this system so that it's not just drop in and then take everything back up. You've got to leave something behind for someone else to live in. So as you can imagine, everything from building roads, rail systems, mining platforms, extraction, and for all this 3D printing, how are they going to process regolith? There are systems they're talking about sintering using solar, laser, because melting down this material or processing it to the point that it can actually be utilized in a 3D printer is a process on its own. So I've been really just exploring this and seeing the fascination. Another component, communications. They do not want downtime for communication. They want satellite communications that can be ongoing. So satellite communication, as we're used to it now, has to be improved upon to truly get the coverage that they require. Plus, here's another component, the spacesuits. This isn't about building a spacesuit that can handle a few hours of time in a lunar environment. These are spacesuits that are going to have to endure that environment. Keep this word in mind, double-edged sword. That lunar dust, how do you manage it? Here's another thing. You might hear some things about environmental components to the moon. Well, here's a little tidbit. I think you might find it interesting. Have you ever considered when they start mining space dust, remember it's low gravity orbit effects, they don't want to make dust clouds. Because unlike here, you make a cloud, it comes back to Earth. You make too much dust around the moon, you get a dust storm, an incredibly dangerous dust storm. In fact, something similar, not exact, similar to dust storms on Mars. You do not want this. So any mining that they have to do, they have to take in consideration of the environment of the moon, its gravity. Because without taking that in consideration, if you just go for it, kick up everything you want, is it going to land? Where is it going to land? Or are you going to have side effects? Those airlocks, you don't want them getting impacted by regolith unnecessarily. Now, these are just a few things that I've been discovering, and I just wanted to share it with you to let you know that there's a lot of more elements to this that I'd like to share in the future, and also take in consideration both the program that is basically, you could say the leadership is America, USA, and the leadership of the China program, which is China. They're not doing it alone. Each is trying to bring in other countries, and they've already done so, other companies, they're already doing so, and organizations. So this has a very large global impact. And some of the numbers might be shocking to you as to how much is being spent. And at the same time, when you have all this money being spent on all these different technologies, including habitats, there has to be some movement back to us here on Earth. And it might be very fascinating to see what advances in agriculture is going to take place, advances in habitat construction, advances in recycling, water usage, soil usage, different biological materials that are unique here but have not been found on the Earth that could be utilized. So I hope you'll continue on this adventure with me, and let's see what other things we can explore, discover together, and I thank you for your patience. So this is Jason Expeditions.